Okay.
Welcome back to the Fic List.
Yay!
It's a podcast where we read, rate, and review fan fiction.
Yeah, that sounds like what I put in our Twitter bio.
Yep, I was trying to remember the wording. It's been a second.
I think it's read, recap, and review.
God damn it. So, Erin, why don't we talk about some fan fiction? What are our tags for today?
Well, our general tag for this week is... Halloween!
Yes!
This is Halloween. This is Halloween. 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 I don't care. We've already started singing every single thing.
We have arrived at the High Holy season.
We have a string of really wonderful holiday tags coming, and this is the first.
Yes!
It's also maybe my favorite.
Well, that's unfortunate.
I know.
There's more to go.
I know, but I love Halloween.
It's so good. What's the Tumblr post? The
Pride Halloween 2? Pride 2, Electric Spookaloo, which is my favorite. So good. Halloween fic. It runs the gamut from real sweet, kind of like smutty, just empty calories.
Like candy!
Like candy to like a really interesting, like, substantive place to start a fic. Mm-hmm. It can be, like, it runs the gamut. It can get really angsty. It's a whole thing. So I'm pleased as punch that we are doing Halloween
wonderful.
Fic. And then the AU for today, which is sort of thematic in a similar way, is Apocalypse AU.
Ooh.
Which I discovered
saucy
that I don't really read. So I had to find one.
Welcome to my eternal struggle.
I hated it. Yeah. It was not great.
It's not great.
It's not a fun place to be.
Nope.
Also, the Apocalypse AU I was intending to send you is gone from Archive of Our Own. There was a really wonderful Parks and Rec one that I was like, oh, of course, I'll just send that one. And then when I looked, it was not in my AO3 bookmarks, and I couldn't find it. And I Googled it and tried to find it, and it's just gone. So
that's so far.
That's
a bummer.
like
a title or a author
no,
or anything?
I don't remember. I never remember titles, and I never remember authors. I remember like plot, and that's about it, which is not helpful.
Nope, not great. You'd be a great librarian.
I'd be a terrible librarian. It's the same thing with me in music. I couldn't tell you who sings the song. I can't tell you what the band name is, but I can sure as shit sing you the chorus. That's all I've got.
Same.
Yeah, and it can be groups that I really, really like, and it doesn't matter. I forget.
Great, so why don't we start with our general tag?
Alright, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start.
Woohoo!
So...
what did I send you?
You sent me Press You to the Pages of My Heart by Butt Casino.
I forgot! I really was excited about you saying that. Can you say it slower for the folks at home?
Yes, that is written by Butt Casino on Archive of Our Own. And it is a magician's fic.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
Is anyone surprised?
You absolutely should not be at this point. This
Erin,
is who
please.
I am. This is not going to stop anytime soon.
Oh, man.
Hyperfixating.
You need to at least branch out to one every month.
I will not.
Erin, please. Okay.
No one ever said I had to do anything.
I'm telling you.
No. Too late. That's not in the official code of rules for this podcast. Boy. So.
Okay, so Press You to the Pages of My Heart by Butt Casino on Archive of Our Own. The summary reads, Margot throws a Halloween party. Quentin and Elliot really like each other's costumes. And that's a good summary of this fanfiction.
It's also very much in the style of the TV episode summaries, which is super cute and super fun, because they're always that kind of way, where it's like a very concise version of what happens in the show, almost to the point of being a little misleading. So I actually really like that summary.
That's
for
wonderful.
That. Yeah.
Great. Good job, Butt Casino.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Well done. You are a stellar auteur, Butt Casino.
So the fic kind of jumps between like a few weeks before the party, and then at the party, and then like right after the party, and essentially jumps from Margot talking Quentin and Alice into going to the party, and then talking Elliot into a group costume with Margot, Todd, and Elliot. The group costume is Margot is Leia, Todd is Chewbacca, and Elliot is Han Solo. What I found really interesting is that never in the fic does she say Han Solo or Princess Leia or even Chewbacca. She's just like, Todd is learning how to say Wookiee. Oh, true. And I'm like, are you afraid of being sued by George Lucas, by Disney? Because they say Indiana Jones. Yeah. So I was like, interesting.
It didn't occur to me that happened, but you're not incorrect. Right. So I'm gonna choose to believe that it was some kind of choice.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it goes in the box on the shelf.
I love it. So there's this really great moment where Margot's like convincing Elliot to do it, and they're like, I think getting ready. And Elliot's like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, group costumes are like the worst of the worst. Mm-hmm. And Margot says, well, I know of a certain nerd who would would find you irresistible on this. And Elliot's like, all right, I'll do it.
He's like, all right, cool. Yep. I got you. I see what you're doing.
Yep. And then Quentin's costume is a sexy Professor Indiana Jones. Yes! He's got the tweed blazer and like glasses and like elbow patches. And really short shorts. Yep. Because Margot lied to him about the fact that they sent the wrong, shorts.
He's like, God damn it, they sent the wrong pair of shorts. And Margot's like, yep, whoops, too late to order more. I guess you're gonna have to wear these booty shorts.
Indiana Jones with booty shorts. I was like, I'm here for it.
It's,
I live for the fantasy.
Hey, it's Halloween. If you can't be a little inappropriate on Halloween, are you really living?
So true. Yep. So then at the party, pretty early on, Quentin and Elliot see each other, and then they flirt it up, and they start making out, and then they run upstairs to the cheering of all their friends. Uh-huh. And then they have some pretty good sex.
They are not subtle about it.
No, not in the least. What's funny is that I feel like everyone knew. Everyone came to this party knowing, including Quentin and Elliot, like, I'm gonna bang. Right. Like, it's happening.
You're like, no, I am here. I have one goal. That goal is achievable. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of time. And I'm like, good for you guys, because frankly, how much stress you guys go in the show, you've earned this.
I'm sure, yeah. It's lovely.
It's meant to just be silly and fun. And I think Halloween fics should be a little silly and fun. Agreed. And smutty. And
yeah. This hit all of the, a lot of the ticks for me for, what a Halloween fic should be. Yeah. I was pleased with this. Good. And so they have great sex, and then the morning after, Quentin wakes up and doesn't really know, was it because we were just drunk and we were in the passion of the moment? But Elliot's very much like, hey, I'm gonna make you breakfast. Go shower, and he gives Quentin some of his clothes, his PJs and so, and it's the cutest thing. And you were like, ah! I know, I was like, ah!
Love that shit!
And then they go downstairs, and Elliot starts, cooking breakfast, and all of the physical kids are there, all the friends.
Because he's like, oh yeah, I live in a house with all of my friends. There was no way this was gonna be just us. They're gonna know, because I'm not wearing my own clothes.
Exactly. I have many hickeys.
Yeah, many hickeys wearing pants that are very clearly too long for me. I may as well lean into it. Yep. And just accepts it. And he's kind of all just little warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, and they're happy. Flirting, and Elliot's gonna make breakfast for just Quentin, but then Penny's like, are you making breakfast for the group? And Elliot says, well, I guess so. I'm feeling magnanimous today. Yeah. And then he says, oh, I was just gonna make breakfast for my boyfriend, but I'm feeling magnanimous today, so. And Quentin's like, what? Your boyfriend? And then Elliot is trying to be nonchalant, but clearly not succeeding. Yeah. He's like, well, if you want to be, that is.
And you can tell he's just like, oh god,
what have I done? Oh.
The other thing that I really love is that moment in the kitchen where Elliot's doing something. He's like, Quentin, come here, I need your help. Oh, and Quentin gets up, and he just kisses him, and he, makes out with him against the stove for, a hot minute, and then he's like, oh, what did you actually need help with? He's a little, Quentin is a little dazed, and Elliot's like, oh no, that was it. Yeah. And, sends him back to go sit down.
You've done your part.
And I was like, ah!
It's so...
So
cute. I loved it.
I'm glad. After I emotionally tortured you for about 4
Thank you.
Different fanfics in a row,
happy, yeah.
I decided I needed to send you some gentle things.
Also, what's really interesting to me is that because I haven't seen The Magicians or read all of The Magicians, that other fic is the canon to me. Yeah. And that's all I compare it to. So when Alice was in this fic, I was like, ew, who's she?
Yeah, right?
Where's Julia? Yeah. I did not like it, but I understood. Yeah. Yep. What more can I say? I loved it. It was so cute.
Yeah. Short, sweet, to the point.
Yeah.
Yay.
Awesome.
What would you rate it, now that we're already here?
3.8.
Wow! I
3.8.
figured you were going to say that. I was like, it's either 3.6 or 3.8, based on Alan's sort of metric.
It was either going to be 3.7 or 3.8 this time, but yeah.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Yay! Okay. So, the Halloween fic you sent me is an Overwatch video game fanfic, which I will be the first person to admit that I really don't like video games.
That's fair. I had a feeling.
Yeah, I find them very frustrating because you have to get good at them.
Yeah.
And I don't have that kind of patience. I do not want to have to work for my story. And, like, I used to play video games with my cousin and my brother back when video games were, like, Super Mario Kart and stuff like that. And then they started to get more complicated, and I would get so angry that I was losing that I would throw the controller and, like, run.
Oh, no.
And eventually it was, like, I don't want to do, like, video games are stupid, but it was really because I was bad at them. Nothing has changed.
Right.
Except the fact that I can cop to it's because I don't like them. Like, it's because I don't win.
Because I suck at them.
Because I am super competitive.
I guess
as you know.
Yeah.
Alan knows this
competitive? No!
Alan knows this as my friend, but our dear listeners at home maybe don't realize that. Don't ever play card games with me, because I will probably end up screaming at you. It's not cute.
Unless you're, like, mopping the floor with me, as you did on the airport.
And then I gloat the whole time. Because I am both a sore loser and a mean winner.
That is accurate.
It's not a good look. But I can't change it.
But I love you for it.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a character flaw that I just have to live with forever, I think. So anyway, I didn't know a damn thing about Overwatch.
I'm sure.
But per your instructions in the Google Doc, I Googled what they each looked like. So this is a fic between Soldier 76, Jack Morrison, and Reaper, who is Gabriel Reyes. Jack is in his immortal skin, whatever that means. And Reaper starts in his pumpkin skin, and then maneuvers through a couple of different versions. I'm assuming skin in this case means the outfits.
Yes.
Okay. But it's more than that. It's also like a physical appearance?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I thought. I know enough about video games to kind of like, yes. So, the summary of this fic. Oh, it's called Paper Fortune by Zaz? Zaz?
X-A-Z-Z.
Yeah. On Archive of Our Own. The summary is, stuck between not quite dead and not quite alive, Gabriel can only come to Earth when the lines between the living world and what's beyond is thin. His body is never his own, and instead he possesses the decorations and effigies of the dead on holidays for the night when he can spend it with the only person who knows he actually exists, a vampire named Jack. It's a good summary. I mean, it is what it is.
Oh, I agree.
Like, it's very straightforward. It's not the most sort of, like, eloquent way of putting it, but...
Correct.
I mean, it's straightforward. I also really like the author's note that is just shrugs loudly. This fic was weird and fun, and really I just wanted to write Jack kissing Gabe's stupid pumpkin head. Which, frankly, I think is a better summary than that. Because I was like, I get it. Yeah, fair. It starts with Jack having this paper fortune that he follows to different effigies around the world in order to visit with Gabriel. And it starts on Halloween. Because this is, in fact, a Halloween fic. And Jack is parading around sort of as a, like, jack-o'-lantern, headless horseman kind of guy. And that works really well on Halloween. And they can actually walk around the streets and not be like, what the hell is going on? They do take the chance to, like, scare the shit out of some, like, shitty teenagers because they can, which is hilarious because when Gabriel takes his head off of his body, it continues to talk, which freaks the fuck out of some, like, shitty kids who are trying to take too much candy, and that was pretty funny. So they spend kind of the night together, and they're very comfortable with each other, but it's unclear what their relationship is at the start. You can kind of tell that there's feelings, but it doesn't outright say it. And because it's a fanfic, you know that there's a slash in the tag, so something is going to come of this, but you're like, okay, I wonder what's going on here. So Halloween comes and goes, and then he misses All Saints' Day, which is the day after...
Dia de los Muertos. Yeah,
so the sort of situation is because Jack is a vampire, he has to be in the darkness before the sunlight hits, and Gabriel has to return to the land of the spirits every evening before the new day is. So at the end of Halloween, Gabriel goes back into the effigy. Jack gets in the car, like, very fast to try to get away from the sunlight so he doesn't, like, burn up, I guess.
Yeah.
And he looks at the fortune again, and it's charmed or whatever to have the next place where Gabriel's gonna pop up. Unfortunately, wait, no. It's...
So it's Halloween, and then Dia de los Muertos happens, 4 hours away.
Yes. So he's able to make it there.
Yes.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I was like, what happened? I don't remember.
There's a lot of holidays.
There's a lot of holidays, and most of them are not American holidays.
Correct.
So I don't instinctively know when they fall.
Yeah.
I know All Saints' Day is around Halloween, because I went to Catholic high school, and I had to learn that. But other than that, I wasn't totally sure when a lot of these fell.
Right.
So, thankfully, the next effigy that he has to find is 4 hours away in the next day. So he gets another day with Gabriel, which he's very happy about. Cute. So again, they sort of spend the day together, and this time, Gabriel is dressed up as, a oh god, I'm gonna fuck up the language that you speak, and it's gonna be bad. The Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sugar skull, candy skull kind of thing, the decorated skull. So that's what he's come back as this time, which is a whole other outfit that is, they describe. And I think it's labeled mariachi.
It is. Which
is kind of funny. Anyway. So they have another nice evening, and so Gabriel goes back into the spirit realm, and then Jack looks down at the paper fortune, and the next place he's going to pop up is Rome. And he knows that there is no way on God's green earth that he is going to make it to Rome overnight.
Yeah.
So he's really bummed about that, and it's one of the first times that he has missed Gabriel in a long time. Mm-hmm. And that sort of triggers Gabriel to have some questions in an interesting way.
Yeah.
So, the next time he does see him is in China for a festival that I am not even going to attempt to butcher. But another sort of festival of death and ancestor worship and stuff. And Gabriel's a little actually suspicious and a little I have some questions. And is I was afraid you weren't going to come. And Jack is well, it was Rome. I had 3 hours. It wasn't going to happen. And Gabriel's you didn't even try.
Oh, yeah.
And he was kind of a brat about it. And I'm dude, calm down. But it's clearly coming from a slightly more sort of it's not really about him not coming.
Yeah.
It's actually because he's getting a little suspicious and trying to be why do you keep coming to visit me? We've been doing this. He says this, and this is when you sort of discover that this has been going on for 150 years. Mm-hmm. Because Jack is an immortal vampire, and Gabriel is some kind of weird spirit thing. So this can just go on perpetually, I guess.
Honestly, the dream.
It's taken him a long time to ask this question.
Yeah, honestly.
I am impressed and a little dismayed. But Gabriel's I don't mean to be ungrateful, but the fuck, dude? Why do you keep doing this? And Jack really won't answer him. He's really dodgy about it, and he's I know what it's like to be alone.
Oh, yeah.
And Gabriel is okay. And kind of goes back into the spirit realm a little confused. And then there's a significant gap between that and the next time that they see each other.
Yeah.
And then you get a little sort of a recap of how Gabriel died, which is where some of the darker moments of the fic comes from. Mm-hmm. So you learn that Jack had been turned into a vampire at sort of the early 20th century. Moved to England in the interim between the First World War and the Second. Was living his happy little life with a coven who was chill, maybe not the most ridiculous group that he's ever been with.
Right.
He wasn't thrilled, but was having a good time. And then he met Gabriel at a pub. And Gabriel had thrown some punches at somebody. And they had to kick him out. And Gabriel came back again to be I'm sorry, I was an asshole. And then they were buddies for moving forward. And then after a while, they sort of got together. And they had a pretty good long time together before, in the late 50s, a group of men, I guess, broke into their house and beat Gabriel basically to death for being, queer. Mm-hmm. And so Jack took him to a witch, Angela. Mm-hmm. And Angela's it's too late. He's gonna die.
Who's also a character in the video game.
Oh, I didn't look up Angela.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And Angela's like, look, I can't save him. All I could do is I can sort of save his soul in a complicated kind of way. And Jack is like, tell me what it is. And she's like, well, if I keep Gabriel's head, basically I can trap his soul in such a way that, like, he'll be able to pass through the barrier of the spirit realm with ease on days where the veil is thin, but he won't remember his life before, and the spell will only work for as long as I have his head in my possession. Once we bury it, he's gone forever.
Yeah, it's like keeping him in the eternal state of purgatory, essentially.
Right. And Jack is like, whatever, do it, because this is my love.
Yeah.
Please, I want.
We're so dramatic.
Yeah. So, but it's also interesting because Gabriel had told Jack basically, like...
Oh, that's right.
When he was mortal, he was like, at some point, I'm going to die. And I want you to move on. You deserve to move on. You deserve to find somebody else.
You deserve to be loved by more than just me.
Yeah. So, actually, this whole, like, trapping your spirit in purgatory thing is maybe a little bit not what he wanted.
Right, like explicitly, he kind of said that.
Yeah.
While he was alive.
He was like, please don't. And Jack was like, okay, and then did it anyway.
You can't remember anyway.
Yeah, he's like, well, he's gonna forget, so it's cool. And then Angela's also the one that gives him this paper fortune.
Yeah.
Which is how he knows where to go and all these stuff, so it's a thing. So, then after that memory is sort of replayed and you come back into the present moment of the narrative, there's another sort of small holiday festival happening in Korea, and Gabriel comes through as some kind of cow, which is hilarious. And he asks again, he's like, why are you here? Like, what are you getting out of this? I'm confused. And Jack, like, won't answer him. And Gabriel calls him on it and is like, you're lying to me. Like, I've known for the last couple of years that you're lying to me, but I'm at a point where, like, I just can't anymore. Basically, come to me when you're ready to tell me the truth. And he disappears back into the spirit realm, and the paper fortune is blank for the first time since Jack has had it. So he's like, oh shit. And then, has to reckon with the fact that Gabriel clearly does not want to actually see him. So from there, Gabriel is like AWOL. Jack doesn't hear from him for, I think, a year.
Yeah,
like a full calendar year. And he's talking to Angela the whole time, and he's growing more and more desperate. And Angela's like, well, have you considered that it might be time to bury him and, like, let him go? And he's like, no. Jack is, like, initially very opposed to the idea, but then he kind of comes around to it in a way. And he's like, how do I contact him in the spirit realm? And Angel's like, actually, I don't really know if you can, because, like, the veil is not that thin. But maybe if you were in contact with, like, his physical remains, it would work. So he talks to the skull that Angela has had in her possession and basically says, I'm ready to stop lying to you. And it works. Gabriel hears him, and the paper fortune shows where his next effigy is going to come, which is apparently the middle of nowhere. And it's Halloween again.
It's Halloween!
1 calendar year. Hello. So thankfully it's a very, very quiet neighborhood that he comes out in, and, they have a chance to really talk through it, and Jack is like, okay, I am going to tell you the whole story. And he does, and he tells him that, like, they were in love, and it was a whole thing. And Gabriel's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, so you took away my choice to move on? You have removed all of my agency. Like, you've made it so I am in perpetual purgatory and can't actually, like, I wouldn't have chosen this. Like, I love you, but, like, you deserve to move on, and so do I. And, so Jack is like, but I had to watch you die. And it would have been one thing if we had been able to, like, grow old together and we had a full life, but it was so cut short that I just couldn't do it.
I didn't get to say goodbye.
I didn't get to say goodbye to you. And Gabriel's like, I understand, but that doesn't mean you're forgiven.
Yeah.
Which is actually a really interesting...
I love that.
I love that. Like, that is really mature and really interesting and way better than just like, I get it, like, cool. We're just gonna keep doing this thing that's really unhealthy.
Yeah.
So, basically, Gabe is like, I am not going to continue to live in this purgatory state, but I will give you the chance to say goodbye. Which is the best you're gonna get, basically. And Jack is like, okay, I will call Angela and tell her to bury your skull, which will basically set you free. And Gabriel's like, okay, but I will stay with you until it's time to go. And we can sort of, like, part from there.
Just tears.
And so they're like, okay, so Jack calls Angela, and Angela can't bury him right away because I guess Angela also has to wait for it not to be...
She's also a vampire.
Oh, she's also a vampire.
Yeah.
Okay. So she has to wait for for the sun to go down, which gives them a couple of hours of time together. So they just sort of sit quietly and, like, they wrap up their sort of relationship, and Gabriel's like, you know, I will find you again. And Jack's like, I don't know that you can promise me that. And Gabriel's like, nah, if I found you once, like, and I've spent 150 years with you in the spirit realm, I think I'll find you again. And Jack is like, don't make me promises you can't keep, basically. And then sort of they wait out their time together, and then the time comes and Gabriel passes back into the spirit realm. Angela buries the skull, and he's officially gone forever, as far as Jack knows. Skip ahead a little bit to the end of the fic. Jack is clearly not happy. Not having a good time.
Nope.
But one of his coven members comes in and is like, new kid! And Jack is like, fuck off! And he's like, nope, you have to come meet him. So he goes downstairs, and...
100 years pass between...
100 years pass. I forgot about that. Like, time is completely irrelevant for Jack. It does not matter. It could be 3 minutes, it could be 30 years, and frankly, he wouldn't notice, because he's immortal, so who gives a fuck? So they go downstairs, and he meets this guy, and he is, like, Portuguese and, like, a little bit North African, so he's, like, sort of ambiguous and, like, new, but he smells like Gabriel, and Jack has a moment of, like, what is happening? And they introduce him, and he's like, they're like, tell everyone your name, and he goes, hello, my name is Gabriel, but you can call me Beale. And Jack is like, huh?
Hello.
And that's really the end, is that you get the sense that it's, you know, a reincarnated Gabriel who has been turned into an immortal vampire!
At last, our happy ending.
And you can know it's reincarnation because the author's note at the end says, oh yeah, did I mention this is reincarnation fic? She misspelled reincarnation. But, because it's a surprise reincarnation fic, lol.
Love it.
Yay! It was very sweet.
Yeah.
It was very well written. It was an interesting storyline, despite the fact that I had no fucking clue who these people were or what was going on.
Yeah.
I, like, had a good time.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it was good. It was less Halloween-y than I thought we were gonna go.
I thought, me too, but there was something about all of the different, like, it included Dia de los Muertos and All Saints Day and, like, all of these other, like, Asian-centric, rituals that are days, celebrations that commemorate the dead. And I thought that was really cool. Something about it was like I knew in my heart of hearts, I was like, I know Erin has given us the Halloween fic we expect and deserve. Right. I want to bring something new to the table.
I have given you cotton candy.
Correct.
You have gone with, like, fried dough.
Here is a funnel cake.
Yeah. Still sugary.
Correct.
Still, like, not healthy, but a little bit more substantive than just pure spun sugar. I thought it was fun. To take that metaphor a little far. Yeah. I would rate this probably, like, a 3.6. It was great. I think I would have rated it higher if I had more context.
Sure.
But it was still good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll, like, go back to it, but I enjoyed it while I was reading it.
I also don't know that it, like, how much more context would help, because I have pretty good context, and it was like, I feel like we've kind of got, maybe I got a little more basic enjoyment out of it, but I liked it. It's very well written. Super well written. That is, like, major points in its favor for the writing style on it. And the character of Soldier 76 is actually gay. Oh! Yeah. That's cool. Inclusivity. Wow! Yeah. That's exciting. We love it. I had not considered video games as, like, fanfic fodder, I think. For some reason, it hadn't really occurred to me that you would write fanfic about video games, even though you totally can. Oh, 100%. And people clearly do. Yeah. It's just because I'm not in that world at all. It's almost, I think it's almost like when I send you stuff with, like, that's a poly ship or something that, like, you just don't read ever. I was like, oh, like, what is this world? What is this? Like, how do you write video, like, don't you have to... I'm always confused because I'm like, isn't there, like, an infinite number of possibilities in video games? But then that's not really how it works. There is a narrative to play with. It's just that you unfold it as you play the game. And some things, like Overwatch doesn't... It has a mythos again, but it's not part of the game. I love the way you say mythos. Mythos. Instead of mythos. 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 It has, like, it has all of that, but it's, because of the way the game is played, it's almost made for fanfiction, because you just have these wonderful, colorful characters of various ethnicities and coming from all different parts of the world, and you can just kind of grab them and, like, play together. It's like little Legos, almost. You just plug them into any situation you want.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I'm used to having more structure.
Yeah, having a background and, like, things that you can reference and all of that. Yeah, I get that. I see that a lot in the fics you sent me.
Yeah, they almost always rely on context.
Yeah.
So to have something that is basically contextless, I was like, it's kind of like I'm reading just a small little short story.
Like a novella, yeah.
Right, with characters that I don't know, and there is nothing to pull from except literal visuals. Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting experience. Something very different for me. Well done, Alan.
Thank you!
Yay.
Thank you.
So our next tag is Apocalypse AU.
Dun, dun, dun!
We've done that too many times.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the effect is gone now, but we have fun with it.
We do. We have a good time.
Yes.
Alright, so do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start.
Okay.
Sure. So, the fic you sent me is called Take That, Zombies by Pasty Pirate.
I live for these usernames. Like, you just gotta have fun with it, man.
Yeah,
and
I love it.
Pasty Pirate, Godspeed.
Alliterative? We love it.
I love it. I want to meet you, Pasty Pirate, and see if you are as pasty as I envision. Because I am also pasty.
Do you own a parrot, Pasty Pirate?
I know. Are you secretly Jack Sparrow?
Ooh.
Who is not pasty, but could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, this is by Pasty Pirate on Archive of Our Own. It is a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fic.
Shock of all shocks.
It's been a second. It's been a
second.
The summary reads, the zombie apocalypse is going just fine until Amy stops giving Jake condoms. Which I don't think does, it's not a good summary.
It's not a good summary. It doesn't, it's not witty enough.
Right.
To, like,
to just actually be like a joke or something.
Right. But it's also not full enough to give you a good picture of what the whole fic is.
It also doesn't set up the story you're about to read.
Right.
Because that does happen. Like, Amy denies Jake condoms at some point, but it's not
actually a problem.
Exactly. It's not like
that's
part
not
of
the problem of
the dramatic
piece.
arc or anything. Exactly. Yeah. So this is an apocalypse fic. And the apocalypse in this fic, happens through zombies, like a zombie virus. So this takes place a year and a half into the zombie apocalypse, and Jake is loving it because no one he knows has died yet. No one he loves has died yet.
That he's aware of, yeah.
They're all living in what they call, the command, which is basically the 9-9, and Holt is like the de facto dictator.
Yeah. Like benevolent dictator, but
exactly.
Still.
That's what they call him.
He's in charge.
Yeah.
Because it's Holt.
And honestly, if the world ended, you would want to be wherever Captain Holt was.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the 9-9 is very much in charge of, like, running this precinct now, but not in the sense of, like, precinct of detectives, but place where all the people live.
Yeah.
Like the city or whatever.
They've done really, like, a lot of great stuff with it. Like, Jake is part of a team that, like, goes out and kills zombies and tries to look for more resources for the compound. Amy is, like, in charge of rationing things, which makes so much sense.
She is so hyper-organized.
It's so crazy.
She's so good at it.
I love it.
And I was like, that is a read on them that is so accurate.
Exactly. It's very, very well thought out.
Yeah.
I love it. So, the fic kind of starts off, Jake bursts into a meeting, asking who's thirsty. My bitches pulls out like 2 bottles of alcohol, because alcohol has become scarce in their compound. And everyone's like, okay, well, we're not going to it's 2 bottles. Stop patting yourself on the back. And then Rosa comes in with 4 crates and it's like, there's more.
Yeah.
So they request, like, to go out on an actual mission and take, like, trucks and a 4-person team to this Sam's Club, which apparently is still in stock, which is interesting because you would think that Sam's Club, Costco, and all of those wholesale places would be the first to go.
Yeah. I guess it depends on, like, how far apart the cities with survivors are versus the zombies.
Yeah, I guess
because if it's all zombies, it's not like they're going in for, like, granola bars. Like, they don't eat those things. So it's about navigating the, like, circumference of your zone of, like, influence and, like, pushing further out, but not butting up against other survivor zones.
Smart. Yeah.
That might be overthinking it.
No.
for this. I was like, it is a fan fiction. Maybe I should just accept the premise.
No, actually, I like it.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So, because Jake and Rosa found this, like, Sam's Club with a bunch of supplies, Rosa and Jake each get a bonus item from, like, they get to choose, like, oh, I would like this as my bonus item, even if we, you know, in addition to all the rations that I'm getting. And apparently, this is, in my opinion, is never fully explored.
Yeah.
And I would like to know why. Jake collects condoms.
If I had an answer for you, I'd give it, but I don't have an answer.
Like, he has 2 years, he has a 2-year stock, according to Amy. Like, she knows, obviously, because she's, you know,
she's the one in charge of rations.
Exactly.
And they live together.
Yep. So, when Jake goes up and asks for his bonus item to be condoms, Amy has to be like, we cannot give you that item at this time. Yeah, and it's basically because she believes that, her and Jake are not, like, at risk of contracting anything or of getting pregnant immediately because they've got that stockpile and she's trying to save it for people who might be higher risk. And they have kind of an argument, a little spat about it. But then it kind of just gets, like, swept under the rug and Jake takes some fancy cheese.
And then gives it to Charles.
And gives it to Boyle, who apparently that's what Boyle's collecting. He's collecting
that makes
fancy
sense
cheese.
To me.
Correct.
Like, it is a little odd. I will 100% give it to you that it's a weird choice.
Yeah, and I kept expecting the whole fic for it to be like, this is why, or like, I don't know, but I feel like it never really got there.
One of the things that does happen to people when they go through something sort of difficult is that sometimes it comes out in, like, weird behaviors.
Right.
So, I think part of it is Jake dealing with the, like, stress and sort of, like, what must be an incredibly weird situation to be in, to be living through the apocalypse by hoarding something that, like, gives him some sense of normalcy, maybe? But
control.
But that might be just me projecting onto the narrative than anything.
That's fair. I think that's a really smart assessment, too.
Yeah.
Because then the author goes on to talk about how everyone has a stockpile of something. Like, Charles has the cheese, Amy has trashy fiction and nonfiction books, Rosa stockpiles weapons, Terry was stockpiling diapers.
They all have their thing that makes them feel, like, comforted and safe in some way. And for Jake, it's condoms. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to question it. Into the box it goes. Once again. Yeah.
So the next scene happens at their apartment and they're cooking beans. Jake has this whole thing of like, how do we feel about beans? Or actually, how about beans? Yeah. Do you like beans? Yeah. And Amy's like, yes, I get it. Rationing sucks.
Yeah. She's like, I'm aware that everything is horrible. I also don't want beans, but here we are.
And they talk about how one of Amy's 8 brothers is still missing. Yep. So she's very stressed. All her family's like really stressed because they're all split up and her parents are like in the Jersey compound somewhere. And no one knows where the 8th brother is. Yep. So it's like this knife hanging over them. They say, I love you and all that cute stuff. And then they do some stuff that is short of smooshing.
Yeah. Yeah. They get really hot and heavy.
Indeed, but not too hot.
But they don't actually have sex.
Right. They don't use the condom.
No. That's why Jake has 2 years worth of condoms. He doesn't fucking use them. Yep. Yeah. Which is, like, why Amy is right to not give him any more. Because he clearly doesn't need them. It's a whole circular thing.
Yep. So the next morning when they're supposed to go out to this mission at the Sam's Club, apparently 2 of the 4 that were going to go. So it's Jake, Rosa, Becker, and Coops.
I have no idea who they are.
Yeah, I was hoping that was the case and that I wasn't forgetting people. Nope. So Becker and Coops got drunk off the vodka that Jake brought the night before and were in no condition to go out into the world to bring more stuff. So they got Terry and then Jake asked if Amy wants to go. And she's like, oh yeah, 100%, bro.
Yeah. She's like, I could bash some zombie heads in. Yeah. That sounds like a great plan. And Jake is like, are you sure? Yeah. And Amy's like, yeah. I'm gonna go shoot some zombies.
And then Jake pulls out this Percy Jackson book from behind his bag, and he's like, I found this at Sam's Club. I know this is the one you're missing. Yeah. And it's the cutest thing. And he reads to, like, the group as they're driving over. I don't know what it is about, like, whenever fiction or fan fiction has people reading to each other. I think that's like my ultimate fantasy.
Oh, so mine is sick fic and yours is reading to each other.
Yes.
Good to know.
Is that a tag? Reading to each other?
It could be. We're gonna run out eventually.
Eventually we're gonna be scraping that barrel real hard.
We're gonna like try to exhaust every tag we can think of before we repeat, so it can be one.
Yeah, so they make it to the Sam's Club. Kind of like there's no real problem, no real dilemma. Kind of goes up. It goes off without a hitch, which I love. I was like, good. We love some danger that is like looking like I love. Like if I'm in a safari, right, and I'm in the little the truck, I like seeing the lion on the other side of that.
You want to be in Animal Kingdom in Disney,
correct?
Where there is clearly a fence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to be in Jurassic Park in the little vehicle.
Safe danger.
Exactly. We love safe danger.
Yep. Nerd.
You are the same way.
I know.
And then it deals. So on the way back, because they took so long loading the trucks and stuff. There's more zombies coming around and they heard noises, so they have to shoot more zombies and everyone's like on edge. Mm-hmm. And it touches on some of the psychology that Jake is going through where he's very cognizant of how real everything is, despite how much of a jokester he may be, but he's doing it because he wants to brighten people's day. He doesn't want it to be all gloom and doom. And I love when fics do that.
Yeah.
When there's the person who is cognizant of that and is trying their best to help in the way that, like, they know their personality can. Mm-hmm. So he's cracking jokes the entire way back and asking questions like, do you think Captain Holt and Kevin cuddle?
Yeah. And everyone's like,
If Holt is our king, then is Kevin the royal consort?
Right.
Do you think Justin Timberlake survived the apocalypse?
Which is hilarious. And, like, definitely how Jake is in the show as he, like, gets older. Like, first season Jake is just kind of an asshole and, like, he's not great, but as he gets older, he certainly starts to use humor as a way to, like, bolster the people around him and, like, get people through it. I think that's an influence of Amy, and I think it's also just, like, him growing as a character, so I love that they did that in this, where they carried that over. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I that's really good characterization on this fic.
Yep.
And then they get back. Jake reports to Captain Holt about everything. Mm-hmm. And he's meeting with someone from the government, what's left of the government, or what the government has tried to become in light of the situation. And he introduces himself. I'm Detective Peralta. And the guy is like, oh, any relation to Roger Peralta? And Jake's like, oh yeah, that's my dad. And this other guy is like, well, oh man, he was a good man. And Jake's like, was?
Yeah.
And it just, like, hits him like a ton of bricks.
And that's how he learns his dad is dead.
Right.
And has been for a while without his knowledge.
At least a few years, I think.
Yeah.
And then in bursts Amy, screaming, all 8 Santiago siblings alive and accounted for. Suck it, zombie apocalypse. Your weak sauce can't take down this family. And then holds her hand up for a high five from Jake.
Yeah, and it's like, oh no.
Oh boy.
That moment as a reader, you're just like, oh fuck.
Yep, like, the timing could not be worse if you tried.
Yeah, and you can just picture it too, because you're just like, oh, ouch.
Yeah.
At any other moment, he would have been thrilled. Mm-hmm. But, like, this is the one moment where it's like, nope.
Mm-hmm. And he makes mention, so it, like, cuts to, like, a few hours or a day later or something, and him and Amy are talking about it, and Amy's apologizing profusely.
She feels awful!
How can you not?
Oh my god! She immediately was like, holy shit, Jake, I'm so fucking sorry.
If that was me, I think I would have put my hand down and walked out. Like, I don't know how I could have dealt with that.
I don't know how you recover from that.
Right.
But Jake is very much like, well, if it had to be somebody, I'd rather you get your brother back than me get my shitty dad back, because he was actually shitty to me anyway.
I love that.
Yeah.
And there's a really good conversation that happens about, like, him understanding my dad was, an asshole and not a great person, but he was still my dad. And, like, I still lost someone.
Yeah.
So, it was really well done. I get chills. Yeah. Ooh, chills.
It was really done.
Then we fast forward a bit. They've had a memorial for his dad and everything. And Jake's talking to Boyle, and he says, I think Amy wants to move to the Jersey settlement, which is where her parents are. Mm-hmm. And he's been trying to eavesdrop, but he doesn't understand Spanish very well.
Right.
And he's made up, like, in his mind, he thinks that's what's going to happen, that all of the siblings are trying to find their way to Jersey to be with their parents. And so he's talking to Boyle, like, so we might be going to Jersey. Because, like, I'm not going to go, like, I'm not going to let her go by herself. And Boyle's like, oh, so you're only going to go for her? And he's like, well, I'm not going because I feel like I have to, but because I love her and I can't stand the thought of my life without her. And then Amy's has snuck up on them and heard the entire conversation. I was like, all right, first of all, I haven't said anything about going to Jersey. Second of all, and then shoos Charles off. They're on the roof, which is where their first date was.
You remember?
I do remember. You were ready to throw that in.
I'm so proud.
I know. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned that. Like, since the last Brooklyn Nine-Nine fic, I have watched 5 of the seasons.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't watched the current one.
Incredible!
Yeah, I went home and my brother was like, have you seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine? I was like, no, everyone keeps telling me. He's like, alright, we're watching it.
Yay!
For 5 days we just
watched
Brooklyn
brother!
Nine-Nine. It was great. So then they have this conversation about how Jake is telling Amy, I know you miss your family, so I know that that's what's going to happen. And Amy was like, well, yeah, I do miss my family, but in fact, I'm trying to convince them and my brothers to come here to the compound because Jersey is, like, overpopulated, which, yeah.
It's Jersey.
It's Jersey.
Even before the apocalypse, it was a, blight. Sorry, Jersey.
Sorry, Jersey.
I'm not sorry.
And then Amy's talking about, like, why would I leave? Look at what we've built. Like, we made a hospital. We built solar panels to have this hospital. Like, the instructions were in German, and we figured it out. And it's all very heartwarming. And then Jake, like, feels so much love that he's just like, oh, by the way, I had a diamond ring on layaway before it happened. And Amy's like, ugh.
The worst is he's like, yeah, I had one payment.
I know!
And you're just like, fuck.
That hurt.
God damn
Physically, I was like, God damn it.
Yeah, I was like, oh man.
And then he says like, oh, I've been waiting to try to make my way back to that fucking jewelry store, but the zombies won't let me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good, because like I feel that's what you need to do. Like, I paid for this ring, I'm taking this one. And then the fic ends essentially with them professing their love for each other and Jake asking her to marry him. And she says yes. And she says, I would have been yes before too. And it's so sweet. And
yet another proposal fic. Alan! What have we done? What have we done? So many.
I love proposals.
I know.
They're
we haven't even
cute.
done proposal fic as a
tag
yet.
But that's a good one. Write it down.
That is a good one.
So I loved it. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that the world building here was really well done. They had everyone, like, they really took into consideration the characters and, like, how they are in the show and figured out the best way, like, how would they actually be useful in an apocalypse. And it was so well done. My only kind of gripe would be it doesn't have, like, it's more slice of life than it is like a narrative. But I like that too. I feel like sometimes, like specifically with something that is like end of the world or something that has affected day-to-day life, it's kind of nice to see what that looks like in a different setting. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought this was really well done.
Yay.
I would give this, I'd give it a 3.9.
Wow!
Yeah.
My average remains high.
I know, I hate you.
Again, competitive.
You're the worst.
I know! But this is who I am.
Yep. Alright, Erin, what did I send you?
You sent me, boop boop a doo, a fic called Endland. Sure. It is a Kurt and Blaine Glee apocalypse fic.
Because, I mean, you hear apocalypse alternate universe, and the first thing your mind thinks of is Glee.
Of course.
Yeah, natural jump.
That's 100% where you go with this. You fucking weirdo.
You know what's funny is as I was looking for these one night with my roommates, they were like in the living room with me, and I was like, hey guys, look at this summary, and you'll read it right now, and I was like, isn't this ridiculous? And they're like, yeah, and then I started reading it, and I was like, fuck, it's good.
Yeah. Don't you hate that?
It's the worst.
I get so mad at fics. Sometimes there's fics that you want to hate, and then they're good, and you're almost mad about it.
Right.
You're like, God damn it, this shouldn't work, but it does.
Exactly.
So, this fic is called Endland. The author is Seer of Today and Tomorrow. All one word.
Yep.
On Archive of Our Own. The summary is, Apocalypse AU. Kurt is a prostitute, jaded from the way his world fell apart. Blaine is a policeman, trying to maintain some kind of order in the midst of chaos. When Kurt discovers something that may cost him his life, he wants to pay Blaine for his protection, in the way he usually does. But as, once again, everything crashes around them, he soon discovers that sex with Blaine can never be just a business transaction. That is a deeply misleading summary.
Correct.
That is actually not the story that this person wrote.
Agreed.
I don't think.
Yeah.
It makes it sound like this story is about...
Witness protection type thing?
Yeah, like a witness protection thing, or like really like a exchange of prostitution for protection kind of situation. And that's not at all what this is.
So
this is a world in which basically natural disaster has killed everybody.
Time out real quick. If the world is going to end through natural disaster, I fully believe that.
100%. No, I am 100% convinced that the way that we go is by, Mother Earth being like, fuck all y'all. And in this fic, that translates to multiple natural disasters basically coming in and, like, cornering people from all sides. Yeah, so there's basically, like, climate disaster coming at them from all angles. Kurt comes from an area that has flooded. So his family historically has been fishermen. Also, what you discover in this fic is that there was an apocalypse, like, 100 years prior to this. And now a secondary apocalypse is imminent. And I'm like, wow, you can't catch a fucking break. It's real bad. So Kurt grew up in a fishing family. He learned all of the fisherman stuff and how to, like, fix boats and be kind of handy. But it wasn't enough to save him when, like, his village flooded and he had to, like, get out on his own and his family died and all of that. So he turned to prostitution as a way to, like, make money. And he had sort of, like, built up a little life for himself where it was very isolated, but fine. Like, he was getting by. So you sort of discover Kurt as he's running from continued flooding that is just devastating the village that he's in. Like, he basically is like, I can't wait here anymore. I have to go. So he starts moving inland. And as he starts moving inland, he comes across this city where they're building a giant wall around the city, which feels a little timely for something that was written in 2016. So they get to the city and he kind of settles in and he realizes, so it's not just the water coming from his neck of the woods, but there's, like, excessive, like, winds, like Dust Bowl winds in the north. In the south, it's lava. Yeah. And then in the east, it's, like, mountain mudslides. Yes, that's right. Like, crushing things. So it's literally just, like, encroaching on the center of this country. Assuming it's America? I'm not totally sure. So, yeah. So this city has become this, like, one remaining stronghold, and they're building a giant wall to keep all of it out. They say something about this wall being, like, 7 feet tall, and I was like, how much water was there? Because, like, if a 7-foot wall could fix it, I'm confused.
Well, it's also, like, it's not right. I don't think it's right up against the wall, though. At least the water isn't. I think it's like it's back a bit.
It was just, it's 6
to thin, yeah.
I was a little...
Yeah, like, there's no way that wall would keep anything out. Also, the wind. I was like, there's no top to this. It's not a dome.
I had questions, but then I was like, okay.
You put it in the box.
I put it in the box. I accepted the premise, and I moved on. So, he's in the city, and he meets a guard right away, who is like, oh, hey, new face, you're the first one in a while, so we're assuming you're the last survivor.
Congratulations.
Wow. And Kurt's like, oh, that sucks. But okay. So they take him in, and it's Blaine. This guard is Blaine.
Of course it is.
And of course they're like, Blaine's like, oh, I'm part of the new militia. We don't really have an official title, but, like, let me get you to your starting, like, registration. And Kurt's like, glad to see, bureaucracy is still alive and well. And Blaine is, like, not amused by that, because Blaine is actually quite dedicated to the idea of, like, order and law and all these things. And Kurt's like, all right, cool, whatever. And so Kurt gets into the city and he settles. And he ends up rooming with Santana and Rachel in some house somewhere. And he's like, I'm so done with these two girls, but, like, whatever, it's fine. It's a place to be. Like, it's not out in the, like, floodwaters, and it's not out in the, like, woods where I was gonna freeze to death and all that stuff. So he's like, okay. And then he starts, quote, networking. Yeah. And he does start, like, prostituting again to, like, even though he doesn't super have to, it's just kind of all he knows. So it's a way for him to trade for, like, goods that he can't get because they ration all of their food because it's the apocalypse. So he gets, like, extra food stamps and stuff, and, like, he does it that way. Blaine finds him and is like, you can't do that. And he's like, can I though? And Blaine's like, not in public. And Kurt's like, it's an alley, though. Like, is it really public? And Blaine's like, yes, Kurt, it is the public. Like, what is wrong with you? But he's kind of, like, playful in a weird way, and that's, like, how Blaine figures out what Kurt is up to. And he's like, all right. So they kind of just keep it on for a little bit, but as sort of time goes on, the administration starts to get a little, like, dodgy. And they ban people from going to the top of the wall to look out, which is one of Kurt's, like, favorite things to do, because he feels really claustrophobic within the walls of the city.
Right.
So he goes to Blaine, and he's like, please, I just need, like, 15 minutes out there just to, like, not... And Blaine's like, not even for you, Kurt. Like, you cannot break the rules. So he goes to Puck, blows him, and gets up to the top of the wall! I'm like, bless Kurt.
Yep.
You know, he was like, nope, this is how it's gonna go. So he goes up, and, like, he sees that, you know, things are still bad out there, but he's like, why aren't we exploring? Because it's not actually as bad as I think we think it is. Like, there's a world in which, and particularly in the north where the wind is, there might be habitable land out there, but we just don't know.
Like, the floor, he's starting to see the ground again. Like, it doesn't look as dusty as it had been.
So he's like, that's weird. So he goes back to the city and starts kind of just, like, poking and being like, so why don't we go out there? And the administration and the police, which at one point or another start to be called street sweepers, as a joke initially, but then very much as, like, a real thing, are like, don't ask questions, basically. Like, it's dangerous, we're not going to do that, stop pushing. And Blaine is like, I don't understand why you want to go out there. Like, it's dangerous. Like, the government wouldn't let us do a thing that was dangerous, and this doesn't make any sense to me. And Kurt's not convinced. But he's like, all right, whatever. Like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep going up to the wall, and it's going to be okay. And things get really bad concurrently while this is happening. Like, people are starving, there's a famine, there's all of the crops are, like, dying, they do not have enough food. So Kurt gets more and more, like, why are we doing this? Like, we are clearly going to start, like, eating each other, literally, very soon, if we are not interested in exploring. So, finally, the government is like, okay, we are going to send a, like, small group of people to just go, like, look at this and see what's possible. And Blaine is part of the group and goes to Kurt and is like, don't you want to go? Like, they're asking for a couple of brave volunteers to, like, go over the wall. And Kurt's like, yeah, sure, like, great, I want to go. So they go, and Kurt is very clear that it's like, well, it's not great out here, but, like, there could be stuff out here. But the orders from the government are like, go, get food, come back, do not explore further. And he's like, why? Why are we not going farther? Like, we're gonna, like, run out of land and food at some point. Like, we should be going. And everyone else on the mission is like, shut up, stop asking questions. And that's really kind of, like, how this goes. The whole sort of fic is that Kurt is the one who can see the forest through the trees. And he's like, he's finally just like, whatever. And, like, kind of goes, like, keeps it to himself, but is like, And then Kurt starts sort of noticing that the administration is putting up some, like, propaganda, and, like, there's something a little odd. And then he's the one that's sort of, like, putting little feelers out and talking to people and being like, isn't it weird that, like, we're not looking further into this? Like, don't you think this is odd? And then 3 guys in the street sweeper uniforms show up and beat the ever-loving shit out of him, basically telling him to, like, take it as a warning. Yeah. And so that's the first time where you're like, oh, this administration is not good. Like, this is going down a path that we see very clearly.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Just hope. You have hope in your heart, and it just doesn't happen.
It's incorrect hope.
Yeah.
Don't have hope, friends.
Yep. That's the true message here.
In the fic or in life.
Dang.
So he gets this shit kicked out of him, and he recovers, and then...
well, there's a really interesting part, too, where Blaine comes and visits afterwards, because they're really good friends, and, you know, they want to be more than friends, but it's not, like, they don't know that, but we know that, because dramatic irony.
Right.
Where Blaine comes and, like, asks him, do you know who did it? Do you see? And Santana and Rachel were at home when the street sweepers came in and told them, get out of here. So they know who kicked Kurt's ass. And Kurt makes the decision to not tell Blaine. He's like, no, I couldn't see their face, so I don't remember who they were. Because he doesn't want to break Blaine's world. Because Blaine has, the way that Blaine has, like, adapted to the apocalypse, to their situation, is by being a street sweeper and by, like, trying to maintain the order. And if he finds out that, you know, it's corrupt, then his entire world will implode, and Kurt makes that decision. And it's so... like,
it's really sweet, but it's also really misguided.
Correct. Correct.
It's very protective, but it's not...
He tries his best.
Yeah, it's not great. He does try his best. Bless him. Yeah, you're right. So that happens, and then he's just, like, getting better, and it's a thing. And then, but it doesn't stop him from continuing to, like, push. Which puts him in the line of fire, like,
Right.
very dangerously, very quickly. So, Kurt and Blaine continue to get to know each other, like, and get to know more about each other's, like, lives before the apocalypse happened. And then Brittany, who is another prostitute who is screwing around with Santana, comes home one day and is like, I'm really afraid we're all gonna die. And Kurt's like, why? And then she reveals it's because the administration has put up these, like, propaganda posters that beyond the wall is, like, an unsafe level of radiation.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you even were to go to the wall, like, you would be exposed and die within, like, a day.
Yeah,
and, like,
specific to the north side.
Yeah, specifically the north side, and you, like, everyone needs to, like, stay away. And Kurt's like, I have been on the wall every day for the last, like, indeterminate amount of time, and I'm still alive, so that's bullshit. Why are they lying?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, they just want to scare you. Like, they're scaring us for some reason. I don't know why, but, like, there's no way. And so he goes to Blaine, and he's like, what's going on here? Like, why is this being spread? And Blaine is, like, really, angry and kind of, like, shuts him down. He's like, whether or not it's true, the city, like, is keeping us safe. So I don't see why you're pushing it and why you're doing all this stuff. Like, and basically just, like, walks away. And he's like, even the rules apply to you, Kurt, and, like, pieces out. And Kurt's stunned by this and, like, okay, like, I don't know if I can trust Blaine. Like, this is not great.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah. So there's, like, a rift. And it's like, oh boy.
We love a raft.
I hate you so much. So Kurt, keeps pushing it and, like, keeps talking to people and keeps kind of, like, rabble-rousing. And he gets the sense that people are following him. He doesn't get beat up again, necessarily, in the same way that he was before. But he, like, the administration takes Santana and Rachel out of the house that he lives in, with some, like, strongly worded notes of, like, you might want to move, which is, like, a threatening behavior. He stops getting customers, and, like, he's really isolated, and it sort of, goes up to somebody attempting to rape him. And when Kurt kind of gets out of it, like, at the last minute before he's about to actually be assaulted, Blaine bursts in and is there to, like, thwart the attempt. Although Kurt has actually held his own and, like, basically flipped the guy off him and grabbed his knife and was, like, ready to protect himself, but Blaine bursts in.
Right.
And the guy is like, come on, like, you guys told me to come in here and do this, and now you're breaking in the middle of it because he sees Blaine. And that's the moment where both Kurt and Blaine realize the administration is actively out to get him, actively trying to destroy him, and they have to get out. And, like, Blaine's worldview is shattered in that moment. And he's like, frankly, I had an inkling that they were the ones who beat you in the first place. Something is going really wrong. Like, we need a new plan. So they're like, okay, and Blaine is like, no, I can't believe in this government. Like, they tried to come, like, assault you, they've beaten you, like, I can't be loyal to them anymore, we're going. So they pack up their, like, meager belongings and steal out into the dead of night into the north gate. And they tell the girls they're going, and the girls are like, okay, we will hold the fort here, come back at the next full moon if you survive.
Well, what they say, like, if you ever manage to come back, we'll be waiting by this gate every full moon.
Yeah, basically. So they're like, all right, we're gonna go venture forth because we really think that there's something out there.
Yep.
And they venture forth. They go out into the wilderness, and they are not followed by the administration or anything like that. Do they know of? They basically pull, like, a Harry Potter Book 7 Movie 1, where...
Book 7 Movie 1.
Right?
Incredible.
Where they're doing the thing where they're just, like, in the woods all the time.
It's just camping.
Yeah, it's just camping.
We love a camping pit.
It's very stressful camping.
Correct. There's windstorms still happening.
Yeah, so they have to, like, survive. It's, like, survival mode, but... It's also the time where they're together alone for the first time, and they start talking about, like, intimacy.
Yeah.
And Kurt's like, well, have you ever had sex? And Blaine's like, nope. I was waiting for the right person, and then the apocalypse happened, and it seemed like a thing that wasn't going to happen for me. And Kurt's like, interesting, do you want to? Like, with me, specifically? And Blaine is like, yes. But I also didn't want to be a creep about it. And also I have, like a little bit of hesitation. Kurt's like, okay. And then Blaine's like, I really want to kiss you. And Kurt's like, yeah, so kissing's it for me.
Right.
Like, sex is fine, but kissing is the thing that I thought I was going to save for the right person. And Blaine's like, interesting. I'm the only person around. So what I'm hearing is both of us should, like, have our first experiences together? ? And Kurt's like, okay. So they do it, and it's fine.
Yeah, and there's a whole, this is kind of where the summary comes into play, where Kurt is trying to repay Blaine, because in Kurt's eyes, Blaine's world imploded, like his worldview imploded because of Kurt. And so he feels super guilty about bad. Like taking him away from the structure he had going. So he's like, well, Kurt says, I don't have anything of value. Like, the only thing I'm good at is my job. So I'm trying to repay it that way. And like, Blaine sees through that, and I was like,
yeah. Blaine is like, well, don't fall in love with me. And Kurt's like, I do not fall in love. And Blaine's like, but I'm your only option, so we'll see how it goes. And it's like said jokingly, but he 100% means it. Because Blaine clearly cares about Kurt in a way that Kurt just doesn't really know how to process.
Exactly.
Kurt describes his relationship to, like, feelings as having his feelings hung up in a closet, and he can pick and choose which ones to wear when he needs them, but they're very disconnected and removed from, like, actual feeling. That was something that resonated for me in a very interesting way, because it's something that I've talked to friends about in terms of, like, I've known a lot of people who have talked about how, like, a lot of us, particularly if you go to therapy, you become very accustomed to talking about feelings. I think we live in a culture where, like, particularly millennials will talk about feelings a lot, but actually experiencing feelings and feeling things is scary as fuck and does not feel good. And, like, they're two totally different things. So that sort of wording, like putting into words that thing that I have personally experienced of, like, the difference between talking about a feeling and feeling the feeling was very intriguing. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, interesting. Ooh. This is something I like. So they find the edge of the water, and they sort of find this, like, corner zone where there's enough resources for them to live. Yeah. They find a house with a bunch of dead bodies in it. And they're like, well, this sucks, but this is our house now.
You're just going to take this back.
So they go through the rubble of this house, because it is rubble, basically.
Yeah, like it fell on the other family.
Right, so they take the bones of the family out, and they give them a burial, and then they say, okay, we're going to rebuild from the, like, ashes of this place. They build this, like, crooked little house. It's literally like, it's crooked.
I love it.
It is not a straight leading house, which is super funny. And they, like, they find all these stuff, and they kind of settle into this life together for a couple of days. They do end up having, like, sex together, which is, like, a whole thing. But it's really, like, Blaine pushes Kurt to, like, treat it not as just another job, but as, like, he's like, well, I'm your friend, and also now your lover, so... And Kurt's like, don't say that.
We don't
and
like
Blaine's
that
like,
word.
but it's true! Because, like, they're nudging towards some kind of relationship in an interesting way. And then as they sort of, like, settle into this house, into this little, like, corner of the universe, they're like, well, we have to go back and get the people. Like, we can't just live here on our own forever in perpetuity. We should go back, get the girls, and, like, tell them that they're alive, and B, like, I actually think this is a sustainable place to be. Let's go save them from this administration. After that's sort of been decided, Blaine and Kurt have a little bit of a fight. I can't remember what the tiff is about.
I think it has to do with the whole, like, don't fall in love with me, or that kind of thing.
It, like, kind of starts to implode a little bit.
Yeah, where, like, Blaine is asking Kurt to love him, and Kurt's like, I don't think I can do that.
Oh, Blaine does say, I love you, and he means it as I love you romantically, and Kurt's like, I can't say that back to you.
Exactly.
And, because Kurt's like, I don't actually know what that feels like. I've never experienced that before. Like, it would be a lie for me to say that I love you in the way that you love me. And Blaine is really pissed about that and really hurt. So he's like, I'm going to go back to the city alone. And Kurt's like, no, you're fucking not, you moron. Of course not. Like, even though I know it's hard for you to be with me right now, that is profoundly stupid. Right. You will die in the desert, and it'll be bad times. So we're going to go together, whether you like it or not. You can just be mad at me the whole time, and it's fine. So they meander their way back to the city. And when they get there, the girls are at the gate as promised. They get there on the next full moon. But they are ambushed by the street sweepers who are waiting for them because Rachel has accidentally betrayed them because Rachel's a fucking moron, as is in the show.
Correct.
So she's dating Jesse.
Yep.
Oh my god. Who is Jonathan Groff.
Jonathan Groff, how could you?
Yeah, dating Jesse, who is a street sweeper who is on the loyal to the administration. He has been sort of patrolling the North Gate, keeping an eye on the girls because Rachel had let slip that's what was going to happen around the full moon.
Right.
So when they cross over the threshold into the city, they immediately grab them. They separate them out. Kurt goes with Puck, who is sort of pretending to be loyal, but actually is trying to get them away. And he's like, we can't do anything about Blaine. They're taking him. They take Blaine off, presumably go beat the shit out of him too.
Yeah. And
they're like, we have to go back for him eventually, but we have to like regroup. We have to figure this out. And Kurt's like, no! But my baby! And he has a lot of feelings in a lot of directions.
It's really interesting. He goes from having no feelings to the closet overfilling and a lot of feelings really quickly.
Which is how feelings work, friends.
Yep.
Have you ever had a meltdown in therapy? Because I have.
Let's talk about that.
It's not great. It doesn't feel good. Oh. Sometimes if you shove things deep enough into a corner, they pop out and like resurface in really inopportune moments.
It's like a Jack in the Box.
Yeah, it's bad. So that's what happens to Kurt.
Yep.
And I was like, #mood.
I've been there.
So they're like, okay, we gotta come up with a plan. And Puck's like, okay, well, actually about 2/3 of the street sweepers are like really over the administration's corruption. They're seeing where this is going. They're not down. I think we can stage a coup. And the girls are like, and we've actually been really sowing the seeds of revolution here while you're gone because we're smart. And
yeah, exactly. One of the things is like, because we're girls, like we're women.
We're more subtle
We're
about
more subtle.
Yeah.
I was like, that's great.
And I was like, yeah, accurate. But they were like, well, we think we have enough people to really make this work. We just have to we have to make this count. Like, we have to make this...
It has to be now. Yeah, like, it has to be a whole movement.
We have to go and we have to do it. So I think the last line of whatever chapter it is where they do this is like, we have to go start a riot.
Yeah.
So they do. They go and they, like, get everybody, and...
I love that there's a whole scene where, like, Kurt's, like, starting a riot takes a lot more time than you would think.
Yeah,
and
it's really slow.
He's just pacing around outside as, like, they're going door to door and be like, hey, it's time for the riot.
Yeah, you ready? Let's go.
Yeah, like, pack up, meet us in the front gate if you're not gonna riot. If you're rioting, meet us at the headquarters.
Yeah, so they, they go and grab Blaine, who's actually not as bad off.
Yeah, like, definitely, he was beat up, definitely, but not, like... tortured or like
right.
Nothing.
They had been banking on it that it would happen, and it did. That like enough sympathetic street sweepers were in on that they took it really easy on him.
Exactly.
So he's a little roughed up, but he's not.
Yeah, it's also a thing of Jesse. When Jesse took Blaine, it was to like he said something like, "We have a score to settle with you." Like, so it was very much like a personal revenge thing. Mm-hmm. So they hadn't told the administration yet.
Yeah,
which is another reason why Blaine wasn't like worse off.
Yeah,
thankfully.
So they go get him. They riot.
Yeah, they riot. Their stones are thrown everywhere. And another thing that's really interesting about this is that the way that the street sweepers got their name is because early on in the administration, like the street sweepers have weapons, but they weren't really allowed to use them because the population has dwindled. So they're trying to not kill anyone if they don't have to. Right. So there's this altercation one day, and this street sweeper, this cop, grabbed a broom and started hitting the criminal, and that's when everyone started calling him street sweeper. So there's this whole like dynamic at the riot where like they don't know, are we allowed to shoot them? Right. And then they just start getting pelted with rocks, and so they have to like use the butts of rifles and stuff. It's really interesting. Yeah. So the riot is happening, and they're like, okay, and they like the administration try to kind of negotiate with the administration very briefly, where they're like, look, clearly all of us want to leave and you want to stay. There are people who want to stay with you. Let us go so that way all of your little rebel rousers are off doing your own thing. If you really think it's too dangerous out there, we'll take care of ourselves. Also more resources for you. Right, more resources for you. This seems like a deal that you would want. I think it's Santana who says this because she is incredibly smart. And the administration is like, we'll think about it, and then they come back and they're like, no! And Santana's like, then perish! So they riot again, and they put up a fight, and basically the administration just, like, lets them go off into the ether without, like, they do fight back, but kind of, like, by rote, not, like, they don't try to, like, crush them or anything. Exactly. And they're like, well, if you do this, you're gone forever. And they're like, all right, peace, suckers. Bye. That was the goal, so bye. So they head back out into the ether,
with a not insignificant amount of people in tow.
Exactly, yeah.
And they start this whole new sort of like colony they head back to the house, the little crooked house, and Satan is like, your house is crooked. And they're like, shut up.
Where's your house?
Yeah, you don't have one, so shut up. So they start rebuilding society from scratch in a more egalitarian, sort of like actual democratic way. Mm-hmm. And that's the end of the fic. Oh, and they also, Kurt says I love you to Blaine at some point, and they get together for real, and Kurt lets Blaine fuck him instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like a revelation for him where he's like, I actually trust a person and can feel good and it doesn't have to just be like a job. And Blaine is like, yeah, you dummy.
Yeah, there's a great moment, like, they get back and because there's only the crooked house, all the sick and wounded who from the journey are sleeping in the crooked house and in Kurt's bed. And Kurt's just like, I just want to sleep with Blaine, but I can't be an asshole about it.
But we're not going to do that.
Yeah, so like the moment they get every sick person out of their house, one moment everyone has a roof over their head, they bang, and he's like, I love you. I've been waiting for like a month and a half to tell you.
Right. So that, and they sort of like, in the end, the last chapter is an epilogue that like fast forwards like a decade or so, and they have like a thriving situation. Puck and Santana are like running it. Mm-hmm. Kurt is basically like an advisor, and they have decided that all decisions are to be made in the open. Like they literally have an open air forum to make all decisions, to like not fall into the same trap as the administration, which all made all of their decisions behind closed doors. And everything is good. And that's the end of the fic.
That was a fun summary.
It was. I think this fic is longer than it needs to be.
I would agree.
It could have been pared down and edited down significantly and told the same story.
Yeah.
Which is my really only complaint on it. Like, the writing isn't as strong as some other things that I've read, but it's not bad by any stretch. Mm-hmm. It's certainly an interesting premise.
Yeah.
I just think 20 chapters... It could have been pared down and the narrative made a little bit tighter, and I think it would have been more impactful. I think it rambled a little bit. I think
it feels like three different kind of stories. Like Kurt living in the administration, like with the wall and all the propaganda, and then there's like a wilderness story in the middle.
Yeah. And
then there's like a rioting story toward the end.
Right.
It just feels, it does feel disjointed a little.
Yeah, it's pretty disjointed. It feels... There is no good way of saying this. Like, it was a little boring at times. In the same way that Harry Potter Book 7 Movie 1 was like, come on, how much more camping can I endure?
I love camping.
Come on. You love camping?
I love camping stories.
Yeah, you don't love camping.
I don't love camping. But
I love camping.
But something, like, I don't know what it is. It's like, maybe it's like the idea of playing house or something. Maybe. I love that.
I don't mean to say boring in a super negative way.
No, I get you, but like nothing happens.
There's a lot of dead space.
Yeah, I get you.
And there's a lot of going back to the same thing a couple of times and not pushing forward in the narrative from it until it's been revisited a couple of times, which is fine. But it meant that I think I wish it had been pared down a little bit.
Okay. That's valid.
I also think that I wish the stakes had been higher.
Yeah.
It's like the stakes are talked about but not felt.
The problem with that is that I read so many, like, apocalypse fics, and I was, like, a tender baby by then. I was like, I can't read more dark apocalypse fics.
Oh my god.
I'm a soft boy.
I don't even necessarily mean that, like, the things that happen aren't, like, significant enough.
Sure.
I just think that a lot of it is so sort of, like, even keel, and it's all treated sort of the same.
I see.
That it doesn't build narratively as much as I would like it to. It's almost like, well, and then this happens, and then we went, and then it was a thing, and then we got over it, and it's cool. And I think partially it's because it's coming from Kurt.
And you know what?
Who is a deeply unemotional character.
Exactly. I remember I had this critique, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I was gonna have the exact same critique. I was like, it feels like very monotone at times, but I was like, but it comes from someone who is very, like... Very
monotone. Yeah. And very repressed.
No emotions.
Yeah.
So I was like, can't tell this is a really smart author, in that, like, they know how they write and they write a character that reflects that writing style.
Right.
Or just an unfortunate coincidence.
Right. Or if it's like, oh, I write monotone, so I wrote a monotone character.
Exactly.
It's a thing. So, I mean, I don't think it's too much of a knock against it.
Sure, no, it's still, like, really interesting world.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting themes explored.
Yeah, but that's what I would change, I think. If I were to go back and, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
that's fair.
Have critique of it. That's where it would come from for me.
Cool.
I would rate this, like, a 3.2.
That's exactly where I thought it would be.
Yeah, so, like, it's good. It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, it being Glee and me knowing Blaine and Kurt super well and having been a Claner helped a lot. I think if this had been a pairing that I didn't know and didn't already have investment in...
That's interesting,
it would have probably been a lower rating for me. Which
Fascinating.
is purely subjective.
But I agree. I think I agree. Because if it's something that I didn't know as well, I think I would also have been like, well, I don't know how much I care. But because I know Klain... Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Nice.
Well done.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Is that all of the fanfic?
That is all of the fanfic for this episode.
Wow. I feel like we breezed through those.
But yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
All right. Well... How do we close these out again?
Oh, I don't know. With an outro. Happy Halloween, friends!
Happy Halloween!
Enjoy!
Please tweet us your costumes.
Yes!
I would love to see, like, what everyone is dressing up as. It's one of my favorite things.
Oh my god, Halloween is the best.
Yeah, and as always, like, please make sure to rate, review us on iTunes so that more people can find our show, interact with Erin on Twitter and Tumblr. Yeah. She's very active and she loves talking to people.
Oh my god, it's incredible because I am deeply introverted, except when it comes to this Twitter account. So find us on Twitter, submit recommendations to us via the form that is on our Twitter page.
Yes,
because we would love to get out of our little, like,
we would love to read something other than the magicians.
You know what, Alan?
I love them.
I'm gonna send you more just to piss you off. Yeah. So
I'm gonna pick one you hate too, and I'm just gonna send that.
That's fine.
I mean, I don't hate the magicians, though.
I know.
Anyway.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.